We are entering a period in history where governments are going to push through some of the most disgustingly unpalatable legislation you can imagine around.
Something they build in for Canada, specifically for Canada at a Canadian government request, will then be available for anybody else to take advantage of in the future. It could introduce potential vulnerabilities that could impact users in the United States, in Mexico, anywhere in the world. It opens the door for foreign interference, cyber criminals, you name it.
What you're asking for is to always have access to the data, which means someone else always has access to it too. Len, a great deal of information here coming from the hearings, public commentary around Bill C-22, the lawful access bill. This is an ongoing, evolving story in a lot of ways. And it's been really bizarre, I think, would be like the most generous interpretation. Watching the procedures around forcing this bill down the throats of Canadians. What's the latest?
That's Bill just keeps on giving, doesn't it, Joey? Or maybe taking. I mean, our privacy. It's one or the other. It's the bill that just never seems to end in terms of talking points and stuff to really dive down and shoot into this thing. But whatever. There's an article that came out from Reclaim.net, and that was highlighting what happened in committee. The big companies like Google, Meta, and Apple and others, they gave their opinion with respect to Bill C-22. And this, obviously, for people who aren't aware, is allowing the government to gain access to people through mandatory surveillance backdoors. And these providers have to do it. And so they had this House of Commons Standing Committee on public safety and national security. And so Google stepped up to the plate, and they decided that, these broad powers, it could just be a little bit too much, and it's going to be granted under this legislation, according to them. And the recap, it's going to allow the Minister of Public Safety, Gary, to issue orders secretly to electronic service providers, forcing them to build backdoors within their system and hand over user data. And Google was critical because this order doesn't require a court order, a warrant, or anything. It comes from the cabinet, and that's it. So Google sent their director of government affairs for Canada, and she came there, and she warned that the bill goes well beyond lawful access regimes in other G7 democracies. Google's huge, right? Like, let's be honest, you could use Google everywhere on Earth. In fact, you don't even have to be on Earth. You could be on the International Space Station and still have access to Google. So they're everywhere. They're omnipresent. But something they build in for Canada, specifically for Canada at a Canadian government request, will then be available for anybody else to take advantage of in the future. It could introduce potential vulnerabilities that could impact users in the United States, in Mexico, anywhere in the world. It opens the door for foreign interference, cyber criminals, you name it. And Google isn't the only one unhappy. I mentioned it was Apple and Meta. They were there at the committee talking about that. And Apple's senior director of user privacy and child safety was saying, when you build a backdoor into an encrypted device, anyone could walk through. And that's so true, because if there is no way to get through something, there's no way to get through something. But as soon as you build a door, and it could have the best lock there, the door still exists. And so they say that the bill could force them or even weaken their encryption stack. And so if you're using stuff like iCloud Advanced Data Protection for Canadian users, well, you could be compromised, or you may not even get it. Because let's be honest, what did Apple do when the UK was asking for doing something similar here? They withdrew the advanced data protection feature in the UK. So UK users are not getting the full access of all the entire Apple suite of encryption stack software. Meta also agreed with Apple and Google, saying that opens the doors to exploits and to end-to-end encryption break-ins. And it also is going to be the retention of the metadata. It's going to be a cause for concern. You're going to secure information for up to a year, IP addresses, call logs, data location. Why do they have to do it for a year? Either way, we heard from Signal, we heard from VPN providers. They are talking like they're going to be moving out if that's the case. And Gary has been out there defending this legislation. Not only him, Plastic Brown from Brampton has been out there. I don't care about Plastic Brown, but Gary, at least he's a minister. He's got more say in this than anybody else. He's saying this is necessary to prevent electronic networks from becoming safe havens for criminal activity. Why are we all targeted? I'm not a criminal, but they're painting us all to be a criminal. It doesn't make sense to me.
There's a fundamental lack of understanding from our politicians about how encryption works. You know, we keep on hearing that this like backdoor will just be used when needed, will just be used when requested, when there's a suspicion, which by the way is a lower bar than existed before. Having a hunch about someone does not make them a criminal, certainly does not or should not open them up to evidential searches and things of this nature. But the fundamental misunderstanding is one about how end-to-end encryption works. And I keep on hearing from our politicians that this is not a new capability. They're not installing anything on devices. It's just a way to basically circumvent difficult bureaucratic hurdles that, you know, in the example that the police give to support the legislation, they speak frequently about, you know, spoofed voice over IP calls that end up in a scam and someone is defrauded of money. By the time those calls are traced and tracked and the crime is reported, the data is already gone and the criminal gone with it. The thing is that what you're actually asking here is not, you know, to get that data more quickly. What you're asking for is to always have access to the data, which means someone else always has access to it too. End-to-end encryption, if you and I were iMessaging, for example, we both have keys on device. There is no key anywhere else. You can't go to Cupertino to Apple and knock on Tim Apple's door and say, hey, can I have the keys to this? He doesn't have any keys to give you. There are no existing keys in Apple's hands for that message. Same thing with Signal. Signal gives you a mathematic key that goes into your phone, into the other person's phone, and that's how the messages are retrieved, stored, and secured. There is no opportunity, option, whatever, for Signal to give you keys. So what are they fundamentally asking of these companies? Fundamentally, they're asking that these companies abandon end-to-end encryption in favor of something much less secure and much easier to get at for black hat hackers and ransomware groups and things of this nature. That's what they're asking for. They can spin it however they like. And boy, are they ever trying. The federal government wrote a letter to Bloomberg News, official government communication to Bloomberg News, basically denouncing all naysayers, all criticisms, all everything related to this bill and the negative impacts that it's going to have if and when it passes. The same week, tweeting out from their accounts that this is not going to include any new capabilities. We're not asking for backdoors. Of course, captured immediately by Community Notes and rebutted. And by the way, Community Notes, for all the people who say that it's just an activist trap that allows people to get on top of this stuff, if you look at the Community Note, it just quotes back the wording from the bill. Installing, increasing technical capabilities, new technical capabilities, all these things. The big problem that people are talking about, or are not talking enough about, I should say, is this like net that they're going to cast, right? They're building a haystack in hopes of finding a needle if and when they need to do so. And this is fundamentally against any sort of established ethic of law enforcement, at least in principle. I don't know what law enforcement is like these days. I have my own views on that, and you've heard them on this show before. But ostensibly, the idea behind law enforcement is that you search when there's a crime that's been committed. You action against people who are committing crimes or are known to be involved with people committing crimes. Now, how do you know? You know because you've done investigative work. You've known because you've done your due diligence and whatnot. What these guys are asking for is basically, to illustrate it, you should go to this example of like a shooting, which is an example they use, okay? If there's a shooting in your area, right now the police have, a few tools available to them. They have shot spotters, which are in the news because that's a privacy issue too, and other sort of ways to capture who was in the area without too much bureaucratic difficulty, okay? Too much legislative difficulty, too much procedural difficulty. What they want is to be able to go to providers and say, tell me everyone who is in this area between this time and that time. And then they're going to look through every device, every message of every person. And guess what? If they think you might be up to something unrelated to that shooting, they ain't going to just ignore that message. If they think you might be selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace and not reporting your income, okay, they're hanging on to that message. And then when they need that message, they got it already. And now you're a criminal. Now you're the one whose reputation is in jeopardy or under the spotlight. Canadians need to be upset about this. And the minister, Gary, whatever his last name is, talking about how this is like non-compliance is not an option. That is confrontational, abrasive, and provocative language that just doesn't need to be used, because he's wrong. It is optional for these providers. They will leave the jurisdiction. Canada is a market of 40 million total people. Let's say 15 of them are users of these products. They'll leave. Google will leave. Apple will leave. What phone are you going to get after that? You're going to buy an iPhone? They're not going to serve you. You're going to buy a Pixel phone, any Android phone? They're not going to serve you. So who are you going to go to? Huawei? I guess maybe you can buy one with your Chinese EV. They'll package it up for you real nice. Leave it on the dashboard for you in the parking lot. You may as well leave the car unlocked. The cars is another thing. That the informatics in cars are in question as well. And the politicians in power saying, yeah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to use this. We're not going to go after vehicle informatics. And people like Michael Geist and Professor Fraser saying, okay, if you're not going to use it, take it out of the bill. No, we're not going to. If you were signing an apartment lease and the landlord said to you, I'll never enter your apartment without 48 hours notice. And that's a time that's amenable for both of us. Yeah, I'm never just going to show up in the middle of the night and bust the door down to show the place or to go in and fix something or see what you're up to. And then when you get the lease to sign, it says, I can come here anytime, any day, unannounced. It doesn't matter what you think, what privacy you need, and take the door off the hinges if I want and leave it like that. And you can't put it back on. And by the way, I may not even tell you the door is off the hinges. And if anyone who makes doors tells you this door is off the hinges, it's illegal as well. They'll be penalized. That's the bill. The amount of information that's going to be available to these guys is staggering. And to the people who say, and there's some people like this in my comment section on Twitter, which is bananas to me. We have to do this because there's too much underground crime. Organized crime is going dark. If you didn't commit any crimes, then don't worry about it, which is what Patrick Brown said. The problem, obviously, is that at the same time this is going through, there's other legislation that is actively trying to change the definition of what crime is. Hate speech, things that are not conducive to public unity. Pretty soon it'll be things about the nature of the economy. We've seen, obviously, recent legislation overseas where a guy was quoting accurate statistics and sent to jail for it. The ruling there was that the man is not under arrest for misinformation. He's under arrest for intent. These people are mind readers when they want to put somebody in jail. You can't defend yourself against that. You can't defend yourself against the content of your text messages, the content of your signal messages. You can't. Everyone speaks differently when they're in private. That is the core principle of democratic societies. Private conversations lead to new ideas because invariably new ideas are often unpopular. Sometimes they are unpalatable. They're outside the Overton window. But that's the nature of democratic society. It's sloppy sometimes. It's messy sometimes. Yes, there are criminals. Yes, there are bad people. But we cannot target the entire population because of them. We cannot. It's not fair. This is a device, an OS level vulnerability that's going to be introduced. And as a result, you're going to lose access to significant portions of your private communication stack. Your fridge, your TV, your car, your phone, all of it. All of it. Anytime anyone tells you they're not going to use it, ask them why they refuse to take it out of the legislation then. Because they're going to use it. They're absolutely going to use it. I'll just finish with this. We are entering a period in history where governments are going to push through some of the most disgustingly unpalatable legislation you can imagine around travel, around employment, around speech, and specifically, I think, around dissent. What are you going to be able to say about policies that you don't agree with? What are you going to be able to say about legislation you think is holding the country back? If we keep going this direction, the answer will be nothing. You will be able to say nothing about it because your phone will be listening, your car will be listening, Your thermostat will be listening. And soon they're going to have months and months and months of those conversations ready to go whenever you stick your head out of the cave. There's no doubt about this. Be aware of this. Fight back against this. Find ways to communicate privately and start using them now before it's too late.
The law is not yet here, but it will be here.
Yes, it will pass. It will pass 100%.
Exactly. You have a majority in the House of Commons. Why wouldn't they want to pass that if this is a bill that they wanted to see become a reality? And right now it's past second reading and it's at the committee. So once that comes back with recommendations, it's going to go for third reading and it's going to pass that. And it might I'm not exactly sure the timeline, but if I were to guess, probably before summer.
It's going to go before summer. Do you know how many days it was in second reading for?
No, not even
4 sitting days. Light speed for legislation that's this broad, rewrites the entire privacy landscape. 4 days. Incredible.
If you think the Senate's going to look at it and try to say, guys, this isn't wonderful?
No, of course not. Of course not.
There are 100 senators that were appointed since 2016, and there's only one party that's been in power since 2016. 100, and the total number of senators is 105 if these numbers are accurate. That's not a majority. That's
sober second thought after all, right?
It's a sweep. Like, I don't know if that's true or not, but either way, they did appoint a heck of a lot more than the opposition did in the past little while. So they have the ability to push things through the Senate as well. So the Senate is not going to put any roadblocks. They may appear to say, oh, we're doing this, but in the end, they're all part of the same party, and they're going to make sure that this gets pushed through. So who knows? Maybe the end of this year, this might receive royal assent, or maybe if things go a little bit slower, maybe sometime beginning next year. But it's going to happen, right? There's going to be no fall of this government. They're not going to prorogue. They're going to see this one through. And there doesn't seem to be much, I don't want to say opposition, but suggestions from within to change anything. They're happy with how it's written. The public safety minister is defending this, and this is a bill that's going to obviously impact him and his department. He's championing it. So why wouldn't they want to keep this? I don't, but I'm not in power. I'm just a citizen, and I do what I got to do. That's it. Yeah. You do what you got to do.
That's right. Do what you got to do before it's too late. That's it for this week. Come back next week for more Access of Easy, EasyDNS.com, Ready.ca, accessofeasy.com. And of course, if you want more from Mark, you can also check out Bomb Thrower while you're out there on the internet. At least you can right now. Might be illegal soon. So,
don't even think about committing. Like, even if it's a thought of a crime, not even thinking. Like, it just that's criminal activity. Think only good thoughts.
That's right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you.
Fluffy clouds and everything like that. Take care.